No, we got a double. We got a Sarah thing.
You're a Sarah sandwich.
See, I'm just waiting for the high sign, and there it is, right there. Big thumbs up. I like that. That's encouraging. It's great to be here in Kelowna today. I'm Adrian Dix. I'm BC's Minister of Health. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the history, the customs, and the culture of the Syilx Nation, on whose territory and home we're meeting today. I'm also obviously very happy to be here. I'll just give you a sense of the run of show, because I have only, for those of you who are standing here, 27 pages of speaking notes. So it's just a short presentation today. But I'm also the MC, so joining me today and speaking will be Dr. Kim Chi, the Executive Vice President and Chief Medical Officer at BC Cancer. He's in charge. That's what that means. Sarah Roth, the President and CEO of the BC Cancer Foundation. That means she's in charge. And there's Sarah Johnston, who will share her experience as a patient and as an advocate for other patients. And when you hear her, you'll understand the power of the work that people do here in Kelowna and across BC in helping and supporting people with a cancer diagnosis. I just want to say a few things to start with. What we're doing today is, about a year ago, we announced and put in place a 10-year cancer plan for British Columbia. And it's a significant moment. It reflected the need to address both the growth of cancer diagnosis in BC and the need to continue to improve services for people. This year alone, 34,000 people will be diagnosed with cancer in BC. And that number, in 10 years, will be 10,000 more people. They are members of my family in the past year, members of many, many other families in BC. The demand for cancer care is, of course, at an all-time high and is expected to increase as our population grows. And just to put that in context for people, in 2020-21, as we were living through the pandemic, that's the fiscal year that started April 1st, 2020, there were 5,317 MSP registrants in BC, 5,317,000 MSP registrant. 3 years later, there are 5,843,066 registrants. That's a massive increase in the population of British Columbia. It's an increase of more than 500,000 people in 3 years. And just to put that in context for people, 10 years ago, a 3-year increase would have been 100,000. I don't have to tell that to anybody in healthcare. We have, basically in 3 years, 10 to 11% more people. We have 10 to 11% more diagnoses, 10 to 11% more of people in hospital. And our outstanding healthcare staff, in the midst of a pandemic, is delivering a level of service never before seen, but also challenged by those increases that we've seen. We've also seen an increase in the rates of cancer among some young people in Canada, including especially colorectal cancer, but also breast and kidney and uterine, and among others. And these demographic shifts put huge pressure on cancer care. Now, there's two things to note at the beginning, and it really reflects the work done by the doctors and the nurses and the health sciences professionals and the healthcare workers who provide cancer care in our province. Two things to note. One, our outcomes. I'll be talking about a lot of numbers, but here are two that are very important. We have, tied with Alberta, the best age-related cancer outcomes in the country by a significant margin, those two provinces compared to all the other provinces. That's important, because it reflects it. And just as important, we have the lowest cancer rates per population of any place in Canada. So the work that do together to make our communities better and to support each other are important. Lower cancer rates and the best cancer outcomes in the country. That doesn't mean, and if you ask anyone working here, anyone working in the cancer center system, there aren't profound challenges. But that's at its core, right? Best outcomes, lowest rates. That's what you want. But I don't think people in British Columbia care that we're doing better than Ontario or Quebec or New Brunswick or wherever. They want us to do much better. They want lower rates. They want better outcomes. And so do we. And that's what the 10-year cancer plan is all about. It's why the goals of that plan are as pointed as they are demanding. Securing a cancer-free future for more people, including the elimination of cervical cancer in BC, help thousands more people survive the cancer diagnosis and extend the duration and quality of life for those living with cancer, and ensure BC's cancer system delivers modern, evidence-based care. We're 1 year into that commitment, and I'm here to report all of the news, including the good and the areas where we have to do better. Let's start with providing care closer to home. We're building 4 new cancer centers, BC Cancer Centers, to bring cancer care closer to home in our province. We're building one in Kamloops, which was a long-standing wish and need in that community. We're building one in Nanaimo that will serve people in Nanaimo North on Vancouver Island. We're building a second center in Surrey to deal with the enormous increases in population growth in Metro Vancouver, and a new center in Burnaby as well. Last week we entered the request for proposal stage for the new Kamloops Cancer Center, with construction expected to start in 2025. The same and open to patients in 2028. The targeted opening date for Nanaimo is as well 2028. The Burnaby Cancer Center is in the procurement phase and is scheduled to open at the end of 2029. And the Cancer Center in Cloverdale, these are all new in addition to our existing cancer centers, is expected to open in 2030. That's important. We have to build out the care, and because so many more people are facing cancer diagnosis, and there are so many people in BC, we've decided to provide services in more places, closer to home, because we know what a cancer diagnosis means, and we know what it means to have to travel a great distance to get especially the radiation treatment that you need. Secondly, and importantly, we're hiring more cancer care providers. And then we've made very significant new investments in the people who work in our cancer care system and provide extraordinary care to ourselves and our loved ones. We've hired 92 new physicians this year, cancer doctors. We've hired 32 new radiation therapists this year, and 18 more are confirmed to start later in the year. We've hired 8 Indigenous patient navigators across all BC Cancer regional centers to directly support Indigenous patients. Since 2021-22, we've added 750 new full-time equivalents, 510 of which are directly supporting the implementation of 69 specially skilled groups delivering team-based care in BC Cancer regional cancer centers. We know that in Canada's healthcare system and around the world, ensuring that we have sufficient health human resources is the key question. Since I became Minister of Health, we've added 45,000 healthcare workers. Now, I've met in the last year with healthcare workers in more than 40 communities, and we talk about this. It doesn't feel like we have 45,000 more people working in the system, right? Because we have, just in the time I've been Minister of Health, 1 million more people to care for. But nonetheless, we have to continue to do that work. Last year, we set records in the recruitment, not just of cancer doctors and oncologists, but also of family doctors, of health sciences professionals, of nurses, more than other jurisdictions. You may have heard yesterday on the issue of cancer health human resources and having the staff required to provide care from the Alberta Medical Association, which is looking to BC to define the strategy they want to see there. Those are important questions. How do we continue to do that? And that's a key part of the plan, and this is the result in the first year of the plan. Thirdly, I want to talk about screening and diagnostics. We're expanding screening to help prevent and detect cancers early. This is critical work as it leads to more effective treatment and better outcomes. In January, we expanded cervix self-screening province-wide with a first-in-Canada option to screen at home. Since then, in just 5 months, we have distributed 29,724 self-screening kits. That people want that is clear from their response. That we need that, we need that, and we can eliminate cervical cancer in this province is also clear. Since HPV testing was launched in January, 162 self-screening samples and 30,994 provider-collected samples have been tested and reported. As important, we're providing free, convenient immunization for eligible people against 9 types of HPV that cause cervical cancer. Screening and diagnostic successes across the board. We've completed 27,326 more mammogram, colon, and lung screenings this year. We've delivered 565 more hereditary cancer screening appointments. We performed 1,566 more PET-CT scans this year, a 10% increase. We've increased PET-CT capacity by extending hours here in Kelowna and in Victoria. We're upgrading one of the PET-CT scanners at BC Cancer Vancouver this winter, and the new PET-CT will be operational in the fall of 2025. And in Vancouver, we've started construction for a new state-of-the-art cyclotron and radiopharmacy laboratory to expand PET-CT capacity across our province and increase access to it in 2026. We provided, and Sarah will be talking about that later, a $150 million grant to the BC Cancer Foundation that has accelerated clinical trials at BC Cancer. There are now 63 new clinical trials open, with 157 interventional clinical trials actively enrolling participants. As well, 17 new FTEs were hired in administrative and direct patient role to support the clinical trials across all regional cancer centers. We've opened 63 new clinical trials, 157 interventional clinical trials, actively enrolling participants in every part of BC. Of course, what's also critically important is access to treatment. Our population is increasing and it's aging. When we talk about an increase of 10,000 diagnoses, it's hard to imagine that, especially for people who treat people one person, one individual at a time. But it's exactly what we're doing. As more people are getting diagnosed, we're increasing treatments such as radiation, chemotherapy, and surgery faster than last year. We're keeping our cancer centers open more hours to deliver more care. We've delivered radiation therapy to 856 more patients this year, a 6.4% increase in 1 year. We've delivered IV chemotherapy to 801 more patients across cancer centers this year. That's an 8% increase. And we're offering, as everybody knows, patients radiation treatment at one of 2 clinics in Bellingham, Washington, to connect more people to the cancer care they need. In the year, and this is ending March 31st, and for members of the media, we have up-to-date data as well. We've 685 patients received a consult, 640 patients in that year started treatment, and 599 patients completed radiation therapy in Bellingham. We provided access for 25 eligible people annually, 20 adults and 5 children, to life-saving CAR-T therapy in BC, reducing the number of patients who need to travel for this very specialized care. We'll continue to expand services across BC. We need to do better in our response. It's why we took the action when we needed to add radiation therapy places in Bellingham, Washington. Because as we're building out our system, we didn't want people to wait, and I think that practice has proven effective for us in reducing and increasing the number of people who receive radiation therapy within the clinically appropriate time. In addition to that, and this is important here in Kelowna, it's important for people in the Kootenays and in the north, and in other parts, and certainly in the north of Vancouver Island, we've supported medical travel in our province. Wherever we live in BC, we need to be connected to cancer care services. And while we have 42 community oncology network sites across BC, for people, particularly those who need radiation therapy, we have the 6 centers that we have. We're expanding them to 10, but they're not open yet. And so we did something, I think, unprecedented in BC healthcare this year. We provided $20 million in one-time grants, which will continue to be supported to Canadian Cancer Society and Hope Air to support patients' net medical needs. This started late in the last half of last year, or fiscal year. Canadian Cancer Society, in a short period of time, funded 1,398 trips for cancer patients, and Hope Air provided 5,867 individual travel arrangements for cancer patients. That's a 309% increase for them. In short, in terms of supporting people traveling for cancer and those that travel with them to support them, a very important group, we've added services and travel services to make that experience a better experience for everybody. I think it's the right thing to do, and I want to thank our partners for such an incredible launch of this program. It's critically important, of course, that we continue to make progress every year. In areas where we're holding steady, we have to do better. Right? In areas where waits are too long, we have to do better. It is not enough to lead Canada in outcomes. We need people to get the care they need because we know what it means to get a cancer diagnosis. In particular, we need to do more to reduce wait times for urgent surgeries. We're committed to meeting and exceeding the provincial target of 80% of urgent cases receiving surgery within 4 weeks. We saw an increase in the number of surgeries this year. The number, though, this year is 64%, an improvement, but not yet good enough. And 82.2% of urgent cases receiving surgeries within 6 weeks, that's an improvement as well. Again, not good enough. Through the BC Surgical Renewal Commitment, we've broken all of the records for surgeries in the last number of years, and that's a tribute not to the government or anyone else, but to our surgical teams, doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers, and health sciences professionals. We're also working to improve access to consults, access to oncologists, and you saw the significant success we've had in hiring new oncologists this year, which involved changes in our recruitment and also changes in remuneration for oncologists to make sure that this was the best place to practice in all of Canada. In short, we're in year 2, and there is work to do. Where we are not doing good enough, we are pledged to do better, and we have the resources to do better. We've made significant progress in this year, but in year 2, we need to build on that progress by expanding the use of the Get Vaccinated system to include the HPV vaccine, making it easier for people without a primary care provider to access appropriate screening services, expanding diagnostic capacity to reduce wait times, particularly related to breast cancer, and introducing new treatments. We'll keep extending hours of operation for radiation and systemic therapy in our regional cancer centers, and we'll continue to improve access to PET-CT scans to enable faster diagnosis. And we need to hire people, and we're going to continue to do that. We had a record year in our first year. We're going to have another record year in our second year as we build up and provide the care that people need across BC. And with that, as all of you know, we have some of the best cancer care providers in the world, and one of them is the head of BC Cancer, Dr. Kim Chi, and I want to invite him to say a few words.
Thank you, Minister Dixon. Thank you for that compliment. It's certainly a pleasure to be here today and the opportunity to have to say a few words to mark the 1 year since the release of BC's 10-year Cancer Action Plan. This action plan is aimed at changing the trajectory of cancer care in our province. Thanks to the action plan and the significant investments that have been made in our people and infrastructure, we've really strengthened and stabilized our cancer system and have laid the groundwork needed for the more transformative work to come. As the Minister shared, our biggest accomplishment this past year is doing more. To meet the increasing demand for cancer care that we face today and in the future, we've hired an unprecedented number of specialized staff to expand our services. This allows more people to have access to the diagnostic tests and life-changing treatments they need. We're making progress in meeting wait time benchmarks, but we have more to do, and we will continue to see the impact of that work in the year to come. The continued increase in demand for cancer care is also a sign of the ongoing success that we have made in cancer treatment, helping more people live longer and better lives than before. These advances are driven by research, and our cancer researchers in BC are some of the best in the world. BC's 10-year Cancer Action Plan recognizes the importance of cancer research to care, and our researchers' work has been accelerated thanks to the grant that was given to the BC Cancer Foundation. Through clinical research, we can give patients access to cutting-edge technologies, find safer and more effective treatments, and improve the quality of life for those living with and after cancer. We're also bringing research closer to home for patients. We've expanded the research teams across our centres in the province, including launching our first systemic therapy clinical trial in Prince George. Cancer research rapidly translates to changes in standards of care, and every year brings new research and new advances. We continue to expand our use of precision radiotherapy, which is a way of giving very targeted radiation to a person's tumor, allowing much higher doses of radiation but sparing the normal tissues and given over a shorter period of time. We're also staying at the leading edge of introducing newly approved drug therapies, such as immunotherapy, hormone therapy, and targeted therapies. Minister Dix talked about the introduction of CAR T-cell therapy, but in addition, we've also made available 12 new anti-cancer drugs and introduced 58 new systemic therapy protocols, all with proven benefits for patients. This means more options, leading to longer and better lives for people that have to deal with cancer. It's important to acknowledge that every step forward we've taken this year is thanks to the people I work alongside. Our physicians, nurses, clinicians, support staff, whose commitment to helping patients and their families have made the progress this year possible. I'd also like to call out a note of appreciation to the many, many new staff and physicians that have come here from BC, across Canada, and around the world. They have chosen to join BC Cancer and be part of this tremendous effort. And thanks also to our health authority partners as we are working together to improve cancer care through the whole health system. Finally, I'd like to thank Minister Dix and the Government of BC for their leadership and vision in launching BC's 10-year Cancer Action Plan and for the continued investments in our cancer care system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. And now I wanted to introduce Sarah Roth, the President and the CEO of the BC Cancer Foundation, which does so much to support cancer patients, cancer research, cancer clinicians across BC. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here on behalf of the BC Cancer Foundation and our 90,000 plus donors across British Columbia and beyond. When I listened to Minister Dix and Dr. Chi speak about all of the amazing changes that are happening in our cancer system, I think there was not one aspect where donor dollars haven't played a really important role in partnership with the government. And the BC Cancer Foundation is so grateful to the community of British Columbians and beyond who support us. We are the largest charitable funder of cancer research and enhancements to care. This year, we received 280,000 donations for a record-breaking revenue of $85 million. And I just want to extend a huge thank you to our community. And behind me is BC Cancer Kelowna, and I wanted to acknowledge Dr. Ross Halprin, who is the medical director of BC Cancer Kelowna and has been an incredibly fierce champion of the importance of how philanthropy, how donor dollars can accelerate research. Just last year, we fundraised over $6 million in 9 months for the new systemic therapy suite that's going to be built here. And that's just one example of how philanthropy is fueling change. I wanted to also just acknowledge Minister Dix and express our utmost gratitude for the unprecedented $150 million grant that was awarded to the BC Cancer Foundation. No other charity in British Columbia's history has been honored with that amount of money. And I want to just let you know that that is, in my mind, you said about you want to do more. That is, we are going to do way more. We are going to make sure we match those dollars and we leverage them. And already, money from that grant is fueling clinical research across the province. Dr. T mentioned radiation therapy, precise radiation therapy trials. Imagine if you can reduce radiation trials, coming to your radiation therapy over weeks and weeks to just 1 or 2 treatments. That's what we're talking about. The grant also is supporting the next generation of scientists. We have to fuel science. We have to invest in science, and that means we have to find the people, recruit them, and retain them here in British Columbia so they can develop the newest cures. And finally, this grant is also showing huge promise, enabling huge promise in AI as it relates to imaging. Imagine if AI can now identify cancer better through precise imaging. Those are just a few ways this grant is enabling change. So I want to just thank the British Columbians who support the BC Cancer Foundation, the government of British Columbia, for partnering with us. We are ready to do more, and we are so excited to be fundraising not just for 6 cancer centers, but now for 10. I'm a very busy person, and we love it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, and thank you for all that work. Thank you to everyone involved in the foundation and really every community in BC for making such a huge difference. And now I want to introduce Sarah Johnston. She's the closer here. So there's big pressure here on Sarah. There's no pressure. She has I think, a remarkable story to tell that people will see in their own lives. I think the experience that they've had and that their family members have had reflected in it. So I wanted to ask everyone to give a big welcome to Sarah. Big round of applause to our closer today to say a few words. Good to see you.
Thank you, Minister Dix. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today at BC Cancer Kelowna. When you go through cancer diagnosis, oh, here it comes. Surgery and treatment, the dates and chain of events, they start to blur. But the big moments stand out. It was October 2022. I was visiting Vancouver waterfront for an annual work conference and gala. It was the first one after COVID. It was a perfect fall day. The sun was shining. I could smell the ocean air. I was excited to see my colleagues that I hadn't seen in quite some time. I was running late, as usual, so I was rushing to get to the conference center. As I entered the hotel lobby, my phone buzzed, and I looked down to see my doctor's name and number. My stomach dropped. I had been waiting for this call. A few months prior, I had found a lump in my right breast. I had had COVID, and I had this persistent cough, and it just hurt. And so I just kept pressing, and I felt it. So I made a doctor's appointment. At my doctor's appointment, he did a manual breast exam and couldn't feel anything. With no family history of breast cancer that I was aware of, he assured me it was likely nothing to worry about. But I was persistent. I felt something foreign. So to be sure, he did send in a requisition for a mammogram, and I was reminded that being over 40, that every 2 years I could get one without a doctor referral. I hadn't had one yet. But he did tell me it could be a bit of a wait due to the backlog and high demand, but just to be patient. While waiting for these appointments and results, I was trying to stay positive, to keep going on with my responsibilities, but I had this gut feeling that something wasn't right. Even my skin became red and raw from pushing on the lump. Eventually, I did have that mammogram and then an ultrasound, followed by a biopsy here at the Kelowna General Hospital. So deep down, I kind of knew that something wasn't right. So when I answered that phone call, Sarah, this is Dr. V. I will never forget these words. There's no easy way to say this, but you have breast cancer. In that moment, my world turned upside down. I fell to the lobby floor, crying alone, late for that conference that I never did attend, away from my husband and kids. I was terrified. I didn't want to die. I was only 44 years old, healthy, and very active. A mom of 2 beautiful teenagers, Lila, 13, and Dallas, 16 at the time, and wife to a loving husband, Carrie, of almost 20 years. I had so much love and beauty in my life, and now I had cancer. I was sick to my stomach. I kept thinking, how am I going to tell my kids? I am supposed to be the strong one, the one that solves all their problems, the one who takes care of everyone. With a demanding career as a mortgage specialist and busy teenagers, I didn't often put myself first. But this time, I was so glad I did. Things went fairly quickly after that. I met with a local surgeon here in Kelowna who recommended a lumpectomy. The surgeon said the surgery had gone well. I had caught it early. The tumor was removed on November 18th and measured to under 2 centimeters, the size of a peanut. The tumor was then sent to California for testing, and I was told the results would take up to 2 months. So I took some time off work and spent the holidays with my family and waited. Early January, I got the results. My lymph nodes were clear, good news. However, the bad news was I had an aggressive, fast-growing cancer. So I met with an oncology team who advised that I needed to do aggressive treatment, and immediately. From there, I had 8 rounds of chemo in 16 weeks. I was not missing that. Every Monday, I sat upstairs in that chair. Every second Monday, I was not missing one of them. And after that, I had 10 rounds of radiation, which, after hearing of what we've gone through, I can't even think of my words. I've heard other people having to do 20 to 25 rounds of radiation, so when I heard 10, that sounded so amazing. Thank you. Cancer treatment was very hard. It took a toll on all of us. I lost my beautiful blonde hair and a lot of my energy, but I didn't lose my spirit or my determination. My last day of radiation was June 15th, 2023, just over a year ago. I walked out of this cancer clinic with a brochure in hand that said Living Beyond Cancer and thought, okay, that's behind me. Now what? My cancer journey isn't over. I'm on immunotherapy and come here every 3 months for treatment and follow-up appointments. I am waiting to see a gynecologist. I'm waiting on a breast MRI and future screening. How long the wait is, nobody can tell me. I'm still tired and I have side effects from treatment, but I'm taking care of myself. I'm doing everything that I need to do, and I'm also taking care of everyone else again. This past year has been one of healing. I've lost family and friends to cancer. I've seen so many people newly diagnosed, and the stress and anxiety that you see on their face waiting is heart-wrenching. If there's one thing I've learned this past year is cancer is not going away. So I've decided to get involved and channel some of this time and energy into making things better for cancer patients in the interior. This year I became a member of the BC Cancer Kelowna Regional Patient Experience Committee, and I just finished my training here as a Wayfinder volunteer at the center. My hope is that any small input I can will make a difference. For me, this work is more than just improving care for people today. It's about ensuring when our loved ones face their own cancer diagnosis that they get the best possible treatment. That's why I'm pleased to be here today and hear all about the BC Cancer Action Plan is improving the capacity for cancer care in BC. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, thank you, Sarah. That was fantastic. You did a great job. It's that, I think that experience that really, Sarah, speaks for tens of thousands of people who deal with that every year. And so best to you and thanks to your family as well. So with that, we're going to take questions. As you know, over the last number of weeks, we've delivered reports on the surgical renewal commitment and the exceptional success the province has had on diagnostic care and the shift and the addition of 150,000 MRIs, 300,000 more CT scans last number of years. We've talked about BC Emergency Health Services and reported about the increase, the doubling of full-time ambulance paramedics in our province, so the improvement in response time. And we're reporting here, and we report as we promised to do, and we launch those initiatives. We promised to do, we launch this initiative every year so that people can see both the progress we're making and the challenges we still face. Happy and honored with the work that's being done both at BC Cancer Kelowna and all our cancer centers, all our community oncology network centers around BC. And I'm happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Minister. Just a reminder to reporters on Zoom, please use the raise hand function to enter the queue, to ask a question, and wait to be called. For media in the room, I will give you the microphone and just make sure that you have one question and one follow-up. Our first question is going to be Kent with Kelowna Now.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Kent, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
You're looking good.
Thanks.
You're looking relaxed.
Trying to stay in shape.
Yeah, you got it.
So, I don't think it's a bad thing, but it sort of feels a bit political. There's a lot of criticism being directed at your government and your party with what's happening in this October. You say that this plan is 1 year in, and yet less than a year ago, David Eby himself called wait times for cancer care unacceptable. You're saying things aren't good enough. And all this is happening within, the last stages of your mandate. Did we wait too long? Is my first question. I have a follow-up.
Okay. Well, Kent, we're reporting. So we announced it last year. I think a lot of times people hear us announce something, right? We've announced the surgical renewal plan. Well, we've reported on that systematically over time. Canceled tens of thousands of surgeries because of COVID. We said we'd do all the surgeries. We did them all. And then we increased our capacity to do more surgery by increasing operating room time. And so we're not announcing something new today. We're reporting on what we're doing, what the people of BC paid for, the very significant investment in cancer care, and what we still need to do. We've got a 10-year plan. We're in our first year. We've made progress in key areas. We've got to make more. And that's my belief, and that's what people in BC think. When you go from 30,000 diagnoses a year, as we're going to do, to 44,000, because it was 30,000 back then, we saw a very significant increase this year. I'll just give you an example of that if I can, and just so you have a sense of that. You look on page 23 of the report on radiation therapy. And what it shows is we reduced the wait list by 24%. But we reduced the wait list by 300. That's the rolling wait list. People join it and then leave it, right, as we go through the wait list. But we increased the number of people getting radiation treatment by about 1,062. Well, exactly 1,062, which tells you the increase in diagnosis. So we reduced the wait list. Obviously, if we didn't see such enormous population increase, we'd do even better. But this is what we need to report on. So we understand the problem, and we take action to address it. We're building 4 more cancer centers. We have to report on those things regularly. So on surgical renewal, did a plan, delivered on that plan. We've exceeded expectations. On diagnostic care, the same. In ambulance service, which you heard a lot about a few years ago, don't hear much about it now, right? Because of the improvements that have been made. And similarly here, and we're reporting on primary care and other initiatives. This is reporting out to people on what's happened. So I think that's an important thing to do and one I'll continue to do. And a lot of the time you've seen me over the last little while has been just this. We put a plan in place. We made major public investments in that plan. We've added health human resources at every turn. And here are the results. And all of them, in my view, can be better because I always believe things can be better. You got to continue to drive forward and make things better. But in really difficult times, our healthcare teams have just been exceptional. And I also want to have the occasion for people to understand just the work they're doing, because sometimes when you hear individual stories, everybody's treated. It's 5.9 million people now, and everybody is a patient or could be a patient or is a potential patient or is served by the system. The level of effort and brilliance and care and compassion delivered by our healthcare workers is something else. And so I'm going to continue here. I'm here in Kelowna tomorrow. You'll see me again. It's exciting. We can do it again. And tomorrow we'll be talking about seniors care. But in all of these areas, we've got more demands, and I think we should report out on how we're doing.
I do think a lot of it's really helpful for people to hear this update. But something else has changed over the last year. Mm-hmm. Politically speaking, you would have been looking at your opponents as members of BC United. Now it's John Rustad. I just want to get your take on how the people who are your critics you most need to be concerned about have changed. It's now this upstart BC Conservative Party.
Well, as Minister of Health, I'm concerned about patients and people delivering care, right? So, we did a lot of work with our doctors in BC. In our first 9 months of our new payment model with doctors, we added 708 net new longitudinal family doctors actually practicing in the province. That's the kind of work, personally, as someone who's just passionate about public health care, I live to do. Right? I just live to do it. I think as a government, delivering on primary care, delivering on housing, delivering on the economy, having what we've seen, which is low unemployment rates, those are critical to success. The people get to choose in elections. I don't get to choose who the other parties are. I don't get to choose how they respond. What I would say is this, that I think the contrast could not be more dramatic. Cancer care, and especially care in the interior of the North, is why public health care is so important. When I became Minister of Health, there was one MRI machine. Mr. Rustad had been in the government, and he was an MLA from the North for 16 years. There was one MRI machine in the Northern Health Authority. They delivered 21 MRIs per 1,000 population. You know what they did in Ontario, in similar region? 60. That's the record. So yeah, in the North, there's no argument. There's very few, for example, contracted private care homes in the North because there's no market for it there. And in the case of Mr. Rustad's own community, Fort St. James, they had a temporary modular hospital that was built in 1972 that's needed to be replaced since 1982. 16 years as MLA, nothing happened. We're building a hospital in Fort St. James. So I think it's about action for people, and we got to continue to do that because ultimately the people who may not support you or vote against you, that's the democratic process. It's all good. It's what we're delivering for people in Fort St. James and here in Kelowna that really matters. Got a great candidate in Kelowna Centre, Loyal Woolridge, who's going to really deliver our message here. I think it's really important. I think Loyal is going to do an excellent job for us here in this community. But I don't think, in my personal view as a politician, I don't take anything for granted and anybody for granted. We've got to go out and earn people's support, right? And I think it would be disastrous for public health care if the Conservatives were to succeed in the election campaign. We got to go show that and do that and care for people. And if we do that, we'll be okay. And the people get to decide, which is a good thing.
Our next question is from Claudia from Global News.
Thank you. Sort of along the same lines of Kent, while I really do appreciate this update, I found it quite informative. I've really enjoyed hearing from the patient today. How do you address that? Because there's no new announcement here, there's no new funding being announced related to cancer-related resources. How do you address that this feels more like a photo op ahead of an election?
It's absolutely the contrary of that. This is a 10-year cancer plan, which we delivered. In our budget, we delivered a very significant new investment, and we're adding services all the time, including here, right? But what this is saying to people, you make a 10-year cancer announcement, people deserve to know what's happened, right? And so this is a detailed report on what we're doing. We did one on surgical renewal a few weeks ago, where we broke all records in the Interior Health Authority in terms of surgeries. Oh, that's not my doing. It takes enormous work. You know, as they say in baseball, you hear the end of Bull Durham, you take them one game at a time. Well, you'd certainly do one surgery at a time, right? And we dramatically increased our capacity to do surgery. And that involved creating more operating room time, training hundreds of more surgical nurses, training a group of people who are misunderstood, medical device reprocessing technicians, who are absolutely critical to that process, as you can imagine, and of course adding surgeons. So that's what we did. We said we'd do it, and we're doing it. We said we'd do it, and we're doing it. We said we're doing it. The progress is okay, but it could be better, and we're reporting on all of that. I think that's what people should expect, and so this is the opposite of that, of talking about what you're going to do some time in the past. This is reporting on what we're doing and what our record is.
Just a follow-up then. Are you planning to do these updates on an annual basis? And if so, if we are standing here next year at this time, if you are still the health minister, how far are you expecting the progress to be made? We're
going to continue to make progress. We're going to have way more patients next year because they increased, I think, several thousand this year, new diagnoses of cancer. And this is on the base of 30, I think we went 30 to 33 this year, so a lot more patients. So we're going to have to build our capacity to treat new diagnoses. And then we're going to have to continue to add capacity to reduce the time people have to wait for care. Because like when you're waiting for cancer care, I tell you this from the point of view of my family this year, any delay is a hard delay to deal with. So yeah, we're going to be reporting on every year of this plan and producing a report that people can see every year. The good, and if there's not so good, then the not so good as well. We've done that on surgical renewal, which I announced in May of 2020. We reported in 2021 and 2022 and 2023 and this year. And it showed a progression of increase. We did that on diagnostic care, which is a huge change for people in the interior. We've gone from 174,000 MRIs delivered under the previous government, under the Liberal government, now BC United, to this past year, 323,000 MRIs. That involved going from using our equipment from 8 to 5 to using our equipment 24 hours a day in many cases. That's how you do it. And, of course, training people and supporting people. So we've reported every year on that. We'll do that again. We're going to report every year on this because I think people deserve to know. And it's that part of it. When you make a major announcement, I think you got to report on what you've done and what you haven't done. You can't refer, we have a 10-year cancer plan. You got to show results and improvements. And I think they're real. This is really strong improvement here, but boy, there's a lot more to do.
Next question is Amir with CBC.
Samir Karim, CBC News. So you mentioned the patients that were being transferred to Bellingham, BC patients.
Yeah.
How much is that costing British Columbians, and how much of that care would be, or how much more is that care costing British Columbians than if those patients were served in BC?
Well, first of all, let me say, it's absolutely worth it. You're talking about providing care for hundreds of more people. I think it's 899 more people now up to date, right? This is to the March 31st that we reported on today. And that means faster access to care for those patients, faster access to care for all the other patients as well. So what we saw last year, the beginning of last fiscal year, in March of 2020, what we saw is we had some equipment going on offline that we needed to fix. We got 2 machines down, right? And we had to address health human resources. So what did we do? Hiring more radiation technologists. We changed the way that we pay them. We supported them. Hired more oncologists. We were creating more capacity in the BC system. But we said, in the meantime, people who are diagnosed with cancer now deserve everything we can do. We had an option to do this, and we chose this option. And it was absolutely the right thing to do, to provide care for people that we could provide in the public healthcare system at no cost to them. So we've been specific. I'm happy to report on the first-year costs of the program. We made all that information clear at the beginning. We have a contract with 2 cancer centers. It was a 2-year contract. But I would say that those tens of millions of dollars are worth it because all of those patients needed to be treated. All of them needed to be treated. And this allowed us at a critical moment to expand capacity of the system. And I haven't heard of a single person, single family member who doesn't think we should be doing everything we can to support patients with cancer. So happy to provide that, but I got to tell you, it's absolutely worth it to ensure that people get the care they need.
And once the capacity is built out for the new cancer centers, will that continue, that relationship with BC and Washington State for cancer care?
Well, I don't expect it would wait that long, but what we want to do is expand out capacity here in BC, and then it will be added to, and it's 2 sets of ways you build out capacity. One, your existing system, you're hiring more people, you're building out your capacity, you're able to work and use those machines more. So we expect to be doing that, and that's exactly what we're doing. It represents last year about 5% of radiation treatments. And so we're going to make that up and do that here. That's the plan in the long run. But as we were building out the system here, and we did more radiation therapy procedures this year than last year in BC, basically in BC, but adding that 5% really made a big difference for people getting access to care this year. And for a period as we went into June and July, people getting access to care had gone down, and now it's on the upswing, and that's because of the people we've hired, the radiation technologists, the oncologists, and also because of adding those services in Bellingham. And not everyone needed them. Like here in Kelowna, we were meeting targets, right? Here in Kelowna, we were meeting targets. So disproportionately, people going to Bellingham are from Fraser Health, and disproportionately from Vancouver Island and Northern Health. But some have gone from Ontario Health, but relatively few. Here, that wasn't required, but it was for the whole system as well. Je dirais en français. En Bellingham? Yes. Oui, juste en général, je pense que nous avons fini la première année de notre plan contre le cancer en Colombie-Britannique. C'est un plan de 10 ans. Et on a fait des progrès dans beaucoup de domaines. Mais on me demande de temps en temps, est-ce que ça valait le coup d'envoyer quelques centaines de nos patients à Bellingham pour la radiation? Et je dis absolument oui, parce que pendant une période où on avait des questions sur l'équipement ici en Colombie-Britannique, il ne fallait pas que les gens qui vivent avec le cancer en Colombie-Britannique, qui avaient besoin des traitements de radiation, il fallait livrer des services cette année. Donc, je pense que c'était important et je pense que c'était la bonne décision. Et on va continuer jusqu'au moment où on peut remplacer tous ces services ici. Merci.
Our next question is from Gary Barnes, Kelowna Capital News.
Gary, how you doing?
I'm
You're
good,
looking
Minister.
so relaxed.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. Yesterday, BC United leader Kevin Falcon was talking about healthcare, specifically patients' Bill of Rights, he called it, and more specifically, he talked about delivering certain publicly funded treatments through private clinics, claiming that will help reduce wait times and have British Columbians quicker access to healthcare. Could you please give us your thoughts on that?
Well, fortunately, Mr. Falcon has a record. Only BC health minister in the history of the BC system to see a decline in the number of registered nurses in actual numbers during his time as Minister of Health. When I became Minister of Health, I said 174 MRI treatments in the public system, right? Under the Liberals, there were more private MRI machines accessible by money than there were public MRI machines accessible by taxpayers, by patients in the BC system. It meant there was a two-tier system, that there was an organized system of queue jumping for money in the province. And so he's saying that will come back. Well, I don't agree with that. We got to deliver the best care possible everywhere, right? And that means building out capacity in our system. It is true that we purchased a private surgical center in Prince George. The reason is that it required investment. And that wasn't because we went out and said, we want to buy you, because they said, we think that there's an opportunity for the Northern Health Authority to take over that surgical center. And they did. We did that twice on Vancouver Island. We took over MRI services so we could deliver them to people in Metro Vancouver. Now, you may say that the Liberals, after 16 years in office, delivering the worst record on diagnostic equipment in Canada is what we want to go back to. But I say we want to deliver more service in the public system for people who deserve care, to make sure that the need for care is what's important. The need for care is more important than how much money you have. But it's also the most efficient way to behave, right? The most efficient way to do that. And we are using our machines. We're not rationing those machines like they did under the Liberals while having private machines running. We're not rationing them, operating them 8, 10, 12 hours a day. We've moved and dramatically increased, and I encourage you to read the report, the substance of the report of how we did that on diagnostic equipment. So there's just it's a difference of view. They'll present their position, I'm sure. But I would say that to go back to a time when people in Northern Health had one public MRI machine, to go back to a time when we only had one PET CT scanner in the province, to go back to those times is not the right path. But I'm happy to have the debate, always. And I'm sure that all of the other parties will put forward health plans. But ours isn't an idea. We did surgical renewal with our surgeons, with our nurses, with our diagnostic professionals. We did that with them. and we achieved results that had never before been seen in the province by expanding operating room time and increasing, with the Health Human Resources Plan, the number of people we had working in the public system. And that involved as well healthcare professionals everywhere, equally on family doctors, right? Kevin Falcon, in office, promised 159 primary care networks. He delivered exactly 0, which is 1 less than 1, right? Promised 159, delivered 0, that's 1 less than 1. And we've delivered, of course, 80. We worked with our family doctors in BC to change the way we pay doctors, and we've seen the success. We worked with the BC Nurses Union to establish nursing ratios, which we're working through and investing money and supporting behind it. We're leading the country in registered nurse recruitment. We have to do better. We're leading the country. So people can compare the record, but also our commitment to keep improving services here. And I'm happy to have that debate. I look forward to it.
Now we are going to questions on the phone, starting with Andrea Wu, Globe and Mail.
Andrea, how you doing?
Hi, good. Thanks for taking my question. Just have a question about radiation treatment.
Yeah.
The benchmark is to begin treatment within 28 days. The data in today's report show that BC fell to around 68% of people reaching that benchmark late last year, and now we're at about 80%.
Yep.
I believe the national average is still in the high 90s. I'm hoping someone can speak to what the specific barriers are to timelier access to radiation treatment and what the province is doing to address those.
So 3 things. First of all, we need to hire more radiation technologists and health sciences professionals, and we've done that. And we're continuing to more coming online. So it's a health human resources question. We need to hire more oncologists, and we did that, and more cancer doctors. We've done 92 of that. We need to expand capacity, and that's why we're building 4 new cancer centers. There were 6 in BC when I became Minister of Health. We're building 1 in Burnaby, 1 in Surrey, 1 in Kamloops, and 1 in Nanaimo. We need to do that. And we need to continue, as I say, to fully utilize the equipment that we have. And so you see some of the progress in that. And the reality is that we're the province that sees the largest population increase of any province, which we have. People are coming to British Columbia because of the economy here and because this is a great place to live, and we got to deliver services for them. So we saw, I think I described that. If you look at page 23 of the report, you see that a little bit, where we've reduced the number of people, the total number of people on the wait list, but the very significant increase we put in place, has very, very much gone to population growth as well. So we just got to continue to build out the system. 4 new cancer centers, more oncologists, more cancer doctors, more health sciences professionals, more nurses, building out the system and building out its capacity.
Andrea, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, still on that question, are there tributaries that lead towards radiation treatment that are also contributing to that? Because I know that a delay in one stage can lead to delays further along the pipeline to getting treatment. So, for example, are there pressures with imaging? You have to have imaging in hand before you see an oncologist or before you see a radiologist. Are there more specific details about sort of streamlining that process to get radiation treatment?
We've very significantly increased our diagnostic capacity, right? And so that means, and when you do that, that actually speeds up the process to treatment, right? So if you look at the 2 statistics side by side, you see that increasing the kind of unprecedented increase in diagnostic imaging, including in cancer, makes a difference for everybody, but it also gets people to the point of treatment more quickly. So that's a reflection of that. We had in BC, not everyone needs a PET CT scan and everything else. We had in BC 1 PET CT scanner when I became Minister of Health in one community. We had a couple, but it was only in Vancouver. Now we have them in Victoria and Kelowna, and we're going to be expanding the sites for that out more. So you need to do it all. You need to deal with prevention. You need to deal with care. You need to deal with surgery. We need to deal with radiation and chemotherapy, because people need different things in terms of their direct needs. And look, having we've experienced this as a family, Andrea. These treatments are unbelievably hard on patients and hard on staff. And so we've got to take away as much as we can the anxiety that patients would have and staff would have in treating patients.
And our last question today is from Katie DeRosa, CBC News.
Hi, Minister. Can you hear me?
Hear you. Very.
Okay. Thanks for taking my question. Based on the 640 patients in the last year, that averages out to about 12 patients a week. So is that short of the 50 patients a week? And if that is key to, if this program is key to reducing the backlogs, like why aren't we meeting that 50 patients a week?
Well, it's 50 patients a week, and we deliver 50.4 patients a week since September, Katie. But just as you might have heard in the discussion that we had, in the discussion of treatment, that sometimes radiation treatment requires 25 treatments. Sometimes it requires a smaller number of treatments. So we have 50 patients a week there, but those patients might be there for 3 or 4 weeks, right? So that's one patient over that period. But in terms of the capacity in Bellingham, we've averaged since September right on 50. Right now, today, I think it's 47. So there's 3 more spots. But essentially, we're fully utilizing that service.
Katie, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, just switching back to the main issue regarding Providence Health. Are there concerns that the province has about, a lack of reproductive services that the health-based facilities are not offering, like abortion and contraception, and the fact that, St. Paul's hospitals cannot provide even tubal ligations for a woman after she has a baby? Like, is it will that be changed for the new St. Paul's hospital?
Well, here's what I'd say. We've expanded. We've led the country in expanding abortion services since I've been Minister of Health. We were the first province in Canada to provide what's called first dollar coverage for Imifigemiso, and it's had a profound impact on the delivery of reproductive rights and abortion services for women. I would say, in particular, outside of major centres, such that actually the number of women who require surgical abortions has declined, while the access to service has increased, and that's because of the choices that have been offered here. And we're going to continue to lead the country in providing and supporting reproductive services. As you know, surgical abortions, for example, they often happen in smaller settings in hospitals or in clinics, and that's been the case in BC for some time. There are lots of hospitals where you wouldn't be booking surgical abortions because the slate of surgeries is different. So our determination is to ensure that there's better access to abortion services here than anywhere else. We've delivered on that so far, and I'm happy to report on that in detail in the future.
That's all the questions we have for today. Thanks everyone for joining in, and have a good afternoon. Now over to Chris for